the Baen Free Radio Hour.
Hello and welcome to the Baen Free Radio Hour. Today we bring you Jeremy Comeaux's interview of Ryk Spoor on his collaboration with Eric Flint to bring you their novel, Fenrir. After that, we jump into part 14 of the serialization of Mark Van Name's John and Lobo novel, One Jump Ahead.
Welcome everyone to another episode. I'm your host, Jeremy Comeaux, and with me today is Ryk Spoor. And welcome, sir. Thank you.
Ryk. R-Y-K.
Ryk. Oh, you know what? I was going to say Ryk, and I talked myself out of it. Doggone it.
Nobody, if they're reading it, almost nobody has ever pronounced it right the first time.
All right. Well, I should have asked you ahead of time, but I presumed, and I got cocky, and so here we are. Anyway, thanks for the correction. So Ryk is here to talk about his latest book, which is coming out June 3rd.
That's what I'm told.
All right.
Looking forward to it.
All goes to plan. Fenrir. Now, before we get started, Ryk, where, if people want to interact with you, where should they go?
Oh, there's several places. One of them is going to sound odd, but it really is the one where I'm most likely to be able to talk for a long period of time. Mm-hmm. And that's as CWASP on Dreamwidth, which is the replacement for LiveJournal. It came up. That's also, I have a community on there, which is my beta readers. Mm-hmm. They get to see everything as I write it. I am on Facebook as Ryk Spoor or Ryk Spoor. There's, the one is technically just my writer's thing. The other one is my personal, but I don't really differentiate between them. And I do have a website, www.grandcentralarena.com. I try to update that one when I can, but my webmaster is not available. So I'm sort of faking it while I try to figure out how the heck does the rest of this stuff work? Because the last time I actually coded anything for the web was in 1997.
Oh, so, wow.
It's been a minute. They're typing in HTML2. There will be, by the way, a column, John Scalzi's site, The Big Idea, on Fenrir will be coming out. I think it's the week after release.
Okay, cool. So before we go too far, the gratuitous flattery portion of the show. So I was telling Ryk before we started recording that I read this book in 2 days, and I'm a slow reader, and so I read it in 2 days, which means I didn't do much else, and it really kept me in there. It kept me going, so not to blow too much smoke, but I really enjoyed it. It's and I was also saying that one of the parts that I liked about it is that it's contemporary. It's like super near future. Like, what were you saying?
10 years from now.
10 years. So not a whole lot has changed, and so it's an easy read. It's a fun read, and it kept me going. So gratuitous flattery segment over. Although it might come back again. So before we get into the book, let's maybe talk about a little bit more about who you are, how you became a writer, how you met Eric Flint, and for those who haven't caught on, nope, wrong side. This is the book cover, and this is your final project with Eric, right?
Yeah, because Eric passed away a couple of years ago. Unexpectedly for us, he seemed to be getting better from the thing he'd had, and in fact, the day that he passed, I called him, got no answer, and said to myself, well, I'll call him later. And of course, I was never going to. As for being a writer itself, I've been writing since I was 5 or 6. I wrote a story when I was in first grade that the teacher liked so much that she sent me to the 3rd grade to read the story to them. And while I was doing it, that was when the light went on in my head that, oh, wait, all those books that I see, someone wrote them, someone like me. That's what I want to do.
Hmm.
And so I've been writing stuff one way or another ever since. In some ways, that's really good because it took me a long time to get published. So I got, as they say, I got my million words out of the way pretty quick. So I've been writing for a long time and reading even more. I started reading at like 4. And I've been averaging up until I was in grad school, or even a little past it. It's probably averaging a book a day. So
Wow.
many, many, many books. I'm in a room here that just has small fraction of them, but you can see,
Uh-huh.
bookshelf back here, and there's another one over here, and there's another one over there, and more outside there, and those are only a fraction of the ones I've read.
Well,
So,
with that, what are you reading now?
well, as I said, I don't have as much time, but I've been reading all sorts of stuff whenever it comes across. I think the most recent series that I just got introduced to was Murderbot, which they're just
Mm-hmm.
making a series of, television series of now. But that was just like, oh my God, this stuff is fantastic.
Mm-hmm.
And I read every single, I found out about them when there were like 4 or 5. I read every single one of them and was sitting there like, next, come on, bring it
Mm-hmm.
to me.
Feed me, Seymour. Yeah.
But within the science fiction fantasy realm, I've read pretty much all kinds. I've read cyberpunk and um, urban fantasy like Jim Butcher's stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And also Ari Marmel's his Mick Oberon series, which I always describe as it's exactly like Mick. It's exactly like Harry Dresden, except not at all, because
Right.
they're both PIs in Chicago, being the only guys dealing with the weird supernatural shit, except that Mick is in 1930s gangland Chicago and he's actually a fae, while of course Harry is a human being in more modern Chicago.
What
But
series is
anyway,
that?
hmm?
What series is that?
Mick Oberon. No, the
Mick
last name is not a coincidence. He's related to Oberon. And
Oberon.
the author is Ari, A-R-I, last name Marmel, M-A-R-M-E-L-L.
All right.
I've
That's
liked everything that I've read that Ari did. There's a few things he's done that I don't, because he warned me flat out, this is too dark for you. You will not like it. I'm a perky kind of guy. I want to feel better when I'm done with the book instead of saying, oh my God, man, I'm glad that I'm here.
I'm winded. I'm tired.
Insofar as Eric, I actually met him via, electronic means on the old original social network, Usenet,
Mm-hmm.
way back when, on the Usenet news group, rec.arts.sf.written, the written science fiction fantasy news group.
Mm-hmm.
When someone took out of context a thing that Eric had posted on Bane's Bar, talking about how he was going to be, working on the reissue of James Schmitz's work.
Mm-hmm.
And the out of context part made it sound like this guy, Flint, thought he knew better how to write than Schmitz did, and he was going to fix the problems that were in Schmitz's work before reissuing them. Now, Schmitz is one of my absolute favorite old SF authors. He was well known for being a guy who wrote stuff with women main characters when that was just not done.
Right.
And they were not oversexed nor unromantic, asexual like many male characters were. They were pretty much normal people going about doing their stuff, except they were just really good at what they did, which made them fun to watch.
Mm-hmm.
So naturally, hearing about this guy I'd never heard of, thinking he was going to rewrite Schmitz to fit his nature, I said, well, you guys probably shouldn't buy this if some guy thinks that he's going to rewrite Schmitz. What do you do with a reissue? You've got the book, copy it, reissue. There should be no need for an editor. What are you editing?
Mm-hmm.
This precipitated something like 2,500 post flame war that went on for months, including having Eric Flint himself join in. The good part of it was that while the two of us were throwing insults about each other's taste back and forth, we never insulted the individual.
Mm-hmm.
He said, that's a stupid idea, but you weren't stupid. And when each of us made little misstatements of fact, we both backed up in public and said, okay, wait, that was wrong. This guy's right about that. And went on from there. So finally, after about 2 months, he wrote, well, I don't know. And this is the way he talked, when I finally met him. I don't know why we're still arguing about something that I posted 3 months ago, when the book that we're arguing about is out on the shelves. You can go buy it, read it, and then tell me whether it sucks. And I said, yeah, but I don't know if I want to spend money on something I don't know if I want. That's, actually a good point. At which point he sent me the original documents he was working from, the edits he'd done, and his notes on why they were being done. And I said, well, damn it, now I have to be all reasonable and give you a chance. And in the end, after reading it, I wrote my own response, which was, all right, there are some edits I do not agree with here that I think are damaging. Most of the edits are trivial and irrelevant, and there's good reason to believe that Schmitz probably would have done many of them himself. And there's one edit of absolute brilliance that I cannot believe that both Schmitz and John Campbell missed. And this edit makes this whole story infinitely better by removing one line. Just brilliant. So in short, this is 99.9% Schmitz's work. It's great to see it reissued. Go out and buy them. You won't regret it. Schmitz is a great writer. And the Butcher of Bane actually didn't do anything terrible to it, which is where he got the nickname of butchering stuff. And so then he wrote me and he said, Ryk, we're doing a bunch of other reissues of old SF, and I just know I'm going to get the same kind of crap over each one. So I figured, why don't I send you these things as I do them, and you can at least tell the idiots on Usenet about what's really going on and if the Butcher of Bane is actually screwing it up or not.
Well, that's pretty smart.
And so I became sort of his honorable opposition. It was about a year after that in an idle conversation, he discovered that I lived in Troy and his mother-in-law, of course, lived in Schenectady. So when he came up, he went to visit me. And I would not have done this because it would have seemed to me to be pushy, but my wife mentioned that I was writing stuff. And he said, man, that was part of Spoor's devious plan. Because when I said naturally, well, what have you got that I can read? The only thing he'd admit to having was something having to do with vampires. And I find vampire fiction as interesting as watching paint dry. But being the sneaky bastard he is, he knew that would just make me more determined to read the thing fairly. And that was the book, the first stories for Jason Wood, which eventually got published by Baen as Digital Night and then later reissued as Paradigms Lost. And when he told me that Jim Baen was going to publish it, I was in the basement. I let out a shout people could hear all the way up. So that was how I got published. It was I insulted Eric Flint, but just the right way. Neither one of us recommends you attempt this approach with others.
Oh, I was about to tell everybody just go
out, find the guy that you like, and find someone writing stuff and just tell him how much he sucks. Especially if he's an editor at a big publishing place that can be significant.
Oh man, that's crazy. Yeah. So but it's pretty cool that both of you were man enough to come together even after all that stuff. Because most of the time online, you start yelling at somebody. It's like, I don't want to have anything to do with that.
Okay, I'm done.
Yeah.
And if I were to meet you, I'd punch you in the face because I wasn't done enough.
Yeah.
Well, that was because both of us did that thing of, oh, wait, what I said there was wrong. I'm sorry about that.
Yeah.
So both of us got the impression of, well, he's totally wrong-headed and he doesn't understand what he's talking about, but he seems to be a basically decent guy.
And so how many years did y'all work together after that?
Let's see. I got published first in 2002. So it was from then until he passed.
Oh, wow.
The first thing we actually wrote together was the really short novel Diamonds Are Forever, which was included in Mountain Magic. And after that was when he went to me and he said, here's this story that I've wanted to do for years, and I've tried starting it twice, and I can't seem to get past it because I need somebody who will smoothly introduce technology stuff and discuss high tech without boring the shit out of me. And Diamonds Are Forever and the Jason Wood stories, you do this even with supernatural stuff. So maybe you can pull it off. And so he handed me these 2 fragments of the story that eventually became Boundary. That is all of it based around the discovery of either a fossil or some ancient objects in space that told us that there had been another species here before, an intelligent species that visited us way back in time.
Well, guess I'm going to read that now. All right.
That
No.
one is Baen still has all 6 of the books in print, and it's 2 trilogies.
Okay.
Boundary, Portal, and Boundary, Threshold, and Portal, and then something takes place in the same universe about 150 years later. The Castaway Planet series, Castaway Planet, Castaway Odyssey, and Castaway Resolution.
No, that's awesome. No, I like the premise because it's a question that I've had in my mind before. My wife is a writer, and I pitched something to her about like there was a previous evolved on Earth, but they were highly advanced and then saw a catastrophe coming and then just went interdimensional and then and then now they're back.
Yep.
And she goes, "Okay, that's good. You write it." And I was like, "Nope, not a writer."
Well, the problem is that writers in general, we have way more ideas than we ever will. The ideas are cheap.
Yeah.
And in fact, there was a lovely short series years and years and years ago of stories that this one editor did where he would send 2 or 3 separate authors the same basic idea, and then he would publish all 3 or all 2 or 3 in the same thing and say, and you'll notice that with the same idea, these are almost unnoticeable as being the same.
That's fun. Yeah.
In Boundary, the aliens are from off Earth. And when they had an argument, that argument was what led to the asteroid that smashed into Earth and triggered some of the downfall of the dinosaurs.
All right. Well, color me interested. I'm gonna go check it out. All right. So, and you, I mean, you've written a lot of books over the years, but you have a regular day job, and and that always fascinates me because, like I said, my wife's an author, and to see the dedication of doing your day job, and it's not like you bag groceries at Walmart. You got a job.
No, I am a my title is Research and Development Coordinator. Sounds really cool. My main task is writing technical proposals for grants for the small engineering firm that I work for, so that we can develop things that don't exist yet, but they could if you just give us enough money to build them. And then if we win the grants, then I usually am helping to oversee the actual work gets done and who's doing it, and write all the reports, go out and give the presentations, and make sure that the customers see what we're doing, that kind of thing.
So how do you balance it where you have a job like that which involves writing and being creative in these proposals, but to turn that off and write make believe,
to an extent, I'm not turning it off. The nice thing about technical research and development proposals is they are science fiction. They're just science fiction that I'm writing very few copies for to a very small audience, but they'll pay a lot if they like it. As opposed to regular science fiction where I'm going to sell a whole bunch of copies, but you'll pay a very small, relatively speaking, bit that will get to me. But I'm still writing stuff where this could happen, but it hasn't happened yet.
We're going to try to make
And and I've done it vice versa, where it's like a lot of the stuff I learned at working for IAM has helped me write some of the things that I have written. Boundary, AJ Baker's wireless sensor dust. I was working on miniature wireless sensors with IEM for quite a while, and watching that technology made it very easy for me to figure out both what could happen, what AJ could do with them and what he couldn't, because that's always important. How do you limit the new technology you're using and make it both believable and plot-wise useful without making it take over everything?
Yeah. Yeah, it's got to have its limits. Yeah.
As for, some of the others, well, my main writing universe, I've been working on since I was 11, probably.
Oh, wow.
And officially got it, and the core world, Zarathan, got its name and started writing stuff about when I was in high school. So I've been working on this stuff for more than 40 years.
That's
I guess
cool.
closing in on 50 almost now.
Yeah.
And so I have this huge backlog of stuff I know about that universe and stories that I want to tell in it and characters that I know exist and so on, that just they sit there and wait, and like as soon as I have time, it's like, okay, yep, here I am, write about me. It can be sometimes annoying if I've got something else I need to do. The real problem is more balancing the time that I have off of work and still paying attention to things like, do the shopping, see my wife, see my kids, cook food, all that darn living stuff.
Yeah.
Having a job is bad enough. I mean, they want me there for hours and hours doing this stuff.
I know, it's weird, right? How they want you, and they want you there every day. It's weird.
Yeah, 5 days a week. I tell you.
Yeah.
So, but the real key is I write because I write. It's I've been doing it for pretty much all my life. If I don't get to write, I get all grouchy and twitchy. So really, I when I get into the flow at work, the problem is getting to that, because a lot of it is, okay, now I have to research real technology and talk to real engineers and make sure it all fits with today. I can't even extrapolate 5 years in the future, because we're not going to be able to work with the technology from 5 years in the future. We have to work with it today. But once I get to sit down and I'm actually just writing the thing, it flows. And the same thing is true with fiction. Once I have the time and can sit down and enter the world, whichever world it is, whether it's my main writing universe, the Arenaverse, or the world of Fenrir, once I see it and I start visualizing what's going on in my head, I write what I see.
Yeah.
I yank in ideas from that I know from whatever is relevant to the story.
Well, so we're roughly halfway through, and now we're just going to start talking about the book.
Fenrir.
Yeah. So again, great book. I like the title. The cover is awesome. So
It is. I love that cover. They sent it
great.
to me, and I was like, squee! There's the
Yeah.
Carpathia.
Yeah.
It's a little less squat than I imagined it, but that's good, because it would look kind of stupid.
Yeah. Okay. Well, so speaking of, there's a fair amount of technology spoken about in the book, but it's very concise. It pushes the story along, and it keeps
as well as pushing the spaceship along.
There you go. But it's stuff that I hadn't heard of, and it's like I said, it's relatively contemporary. So when you were doing the technology to first of all, let's give people the premise of the book. So
basic premise is that a astronomer, Stephanie Bronson, notices she's working for her graduate work. She's working in a infrared astronomy lab, working with one of the newest IR astronomy telescopes. And they've been doing a sky survey, and she notices that there's suddenly a star, or appears to be a star, where there shouldn't be one. And after checking, there is some sort of a light that appeared there, and they can't see what the source was. It's just like something appeared out of nowhere. They quickly are able to determine that it has to be a spaceship heading for us. A spaceship that appears to be something on the order of 2,000 kilometers across. Fortunately, it turns out it's not quite that big. That's just the radiator that's getting rid of its waste heat.
Mhm.
But the waste heat it's dumping is so titanic that it is measurable on the scale of the sun. So it's a frightening as well as awe-inspiring thing. And we don't know why they're coming here. We don't know where they're from, why they're here, but obviously something that is coming at the system that's that size and slowing down under control is controlled by something intelligent.
Mhm.
And so we're preparing to see, we're trying to contact them as they get closer. They don't seem to answer. We're not sure if that's because they're not receiving it or they don't want to answer or what's going on there. And then just as it's about to get into what we believe is its parking orbit somewhere out near the orbit of Uranus,
Mhm.
something goes wrong with the ship. We see a big flare and then everything goes dark. Fortunately, now it's close enough we can find it again, even without its big blazing heat shedding, but that tells us something's going wrong. And the astronomer, Stephanie, has become essentially the face of and spokesman for this whole project. And when this happens, they interview her and she gives a impassioned plea that we show who we truly are by trying to rescue these people, whoever they are, reach them and find out what went wrong and help them before they end up getting too close to the sun and burning up.
Mhm.
And that's the whole setup for the rest of the book.
Yeah, and so going back to the cover,
That's
this
the
is
rescue ship on the cover, yes.
and it's huge, and it's like the
About
biggest.
500,000 tons, yes.
Yeah, and so what I really enjoyed about the book was um, you did a good job of briefly describing how they figured out what it was, how they knew what it was, or why they had this theory about it, and they were pretty confident about it. And I assumed the science was right because I'm not a science guy, uh, but so when you're writing a book like this, did you have to do a lot of specific
Oh yeah.
research on the science in this book?
Every hard SF, there was a reason. I originally hadn't planned on doing hard science fiction
Mhm.
ever.
Mhm.
I like writing space opera and epic fantasy and urban fantasy and all the stuff where I can say, I want to have this dramatic thing happening, and I can have it happen if I make the rules of my magic work like this, or the rules of my fancy technology that might as well be magic do that.
Mhm.
There only have to be rules. It has rules. It has to have consistency and everything, because otherwise, then you get the kind of stuff where it says, "Well, duh, it's magic and anything can happen." But then, is there really any tension? Because magic could just change everything. Anyway, for hard SF, you got to be right. The people who read a lot of hard science fiction care about this
Mhm.
and often are themselves authorities in it. And they like reading about their specialty. And there's nothing that will piss off a specialist more than, holy crap, this guy knows literally nothing about what he's talking about. At the same time, you also have to balance that against the dramatic requirements of the story and against, well, where am I pushing the boundaries to make this science fiction, and how?
Mhm.
So, I wouldn't have done it at all if it weren't for Eric Flint. Eric Flint gave me the pieces that were going to be boundary, and I was terrified when he first handed me this. But I was a new starting out author, and you do not say no to the opportunity to work with a successful author who is going to help you become published in a real publisher.
Mhm.
Get your books actually on shelves. So there was a lot of research for that. For Fenrir, I had a couple of problems. One of them was obviously that I had to have this alien ship coming in. So I had to know, how did it get here? And how could I have it do so using some form of technology to be really advanced, but isn't entirely theoretically ridiculous? And then when I'm saying, okay, well, I want the humans to be able to get out there and meet them. Well, since the humans are going to be worried whether or not did they come in peace or shoot to kill, it's going to have to be something that at least has some vague believability that it could survive at least a spat with these newcomers. So it would itself have to be fast and powerful, but it has to be, since this is within 5-10 years, it has to be technology we actually already know about and for some reason don't use. We either haven't developed it to that point or we have specific reasons that we don't do that. And so for Fenrir, I had to put in several things that are, is that feasible or not? It depends on which physicist I go to. But I had to find at least one or two reputable people who would say, yeah, that could be done. And there turned out to be one possible propellantless propulsion solution, a reactionless drive that actually has some basis in real physics. Now, making it work, it requires, as far as we currently know, working on a Titanic scale. I mean, just that 2,000 kilometer diameter thing I mentioned, nothing. It's nothing. We're talking about things that are scaled on galactic scales. But one of the things that's happened over the years for theoretical technologies is that sometimes we keep finding that maybe it's not as hard as we thought. The best example is the Alcubierre warp drive that people always bring up as, well, warp drive is possible. Not quite, because there's one problem. It requires what we call exotic matter. Now, the exotic matter is not forbidden by our current theories necessarily, but it's not required, which means, as far as we know, it probably doesn't exist, and you'd have to figure out how you're going to make matter of a different type than exists at all. But the original theories of this is that it would require like stellar masses of this exotic matter. And then some refinements of the calculation said, nah, you could probably do it with something the size of Jupiter. But then finally, somebody refined it down and said, actually, you could probably do it with the mass of exotic matter the size of a small car. And that takes it from, I've got all sorts of engineering problems here, to, all right, I just have the problem of I have to assume we can make exotic matter. So for mine, it was, okay, if I follow that same progression, maybe I can assume that if I have things that are many, 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 many miles long instead of many light years long, it would be believable in the progression of such theory. So that's how I got past that one. For Fenrir, for the ship Carpathia, which we launch, the thing was, well, I already know basically what the only technology we could possibly have that would lift a really big object off the planet. But I've got to put a wrinkle in that. Preferably one that does two things. One, hey, most people don't know this one, so it's kind of a cool thing to read about. And two, hopefully one that reduces some of the problems with the base, because the base is old bang bang, the nuclear pulse drive, literally tossing nuclear bombs out the back, where you've got a great big huge plate to absorb the impact, so it throws you in the air with a bomb, and then you throw another bomb out, and you just keep doing this and blowing yourself straight up into the air. That's really great, except that, you know, nuclear bombs in atmosphere, starting on the ground, all this stuff, you know, you're throwing all this nuclear waste right out behind you and you keep going with it. So that was where I had to do some research, and I finally found the ICAN-2 experiments, which talked about nuclear catalyzed fission fusion reactions. And those had all sorts of neat little attractive possibilities in the theory, and I was able to talk to some people who'd actually worked with the technology. Dr. Chakrabarty is the one that I reference in the book, and gave me, oh, this is really cool, actually.
Yeah, no, you did a great job of explaining the technology in a way that one wasn't an info dump. It was concise and very interesting, and kept me into the story. So good job on that. But not only that, you did a good job of painting a picture of the realism of a project of that size, including money, politics, religion, protest, just all the things. And like I was saying before we started recording, is because we have all this stuff in the news recently about them telling giving us the reports on extraterrestrial. What's the acronym? AUD.
Yeah. ETs, UFOs, and all that stuff.
All that's in the news, and plus our political climate now and everything is like, oh yeah, I could see it going this way, and so that was very interesting. And
well, I tried to make a balance. Since Eric was gone by the time I was really heavily working on it, I'd gotten about 10,000 words of it written, and in fact, I was going to ask him a question about Fenrir when I discovered he'd passed away. But then I wasn't able to write it for a while because he wasn't there, and honestly, he did most of the political design and such for our prior books. But I couldn't leave that out of Fenrir. It was simply not possible. So I had this huge looming, oh my God, I don't have Eric to backstop me on this. But at the same time, I had a contract that had to be finished somehow. And I had to do it in a way that I hoped would not embarrass him. Now, I think that it is probably a bit more melodramatic a story than Eric would have allowed me to get away with, because I can point to places in both Boundary, Threshold, and even Portal where he said, Ryk, this is not space opera, this is hard SF. Those are perfectly good space opera melodramas, but we can't do that here and he would list out the reasons. But I have tried to restrain it to a more realistic melodrama, and tried to make the individual people that we meet fun to spend time with, so that you spend time with people as well as with all the machinery, because the other trap of hard SF is always, yes, if I really like your super gadgets, this is fun, but I'm not really getting any people here. There's nothing going on for the people aside from look at this awesome shit. And while I do look at this awesome shit, I would like you to like people.
Yeah.
And of course, as we both have done, there are little references here and there to other works or other in-jokes. The most obvious for any Bane readers is that, yes, once more, Joe Buckley's dead. In a different way yet, but he's still dead. And among other many different references, but among other ones, the main character's name, Stephanie Bronson, is a reference to the very first something entering the solar system book I ever read, When Worlds Collide, because the Bronson bodies, the two planets that invade our solar system, are discovered by Sven Bronson. So Stephanie Bronson discovers Fenrir.
That's very cool. No, when I was reading it, there were aspects of it that reminded me, of movies that I liked, of TV shows that I liked, like the project management of it reminded me of like Armageddon, and the movie Armageddon, where they're they've got to do all this stuff and go blow this asteroid up, and it was very exciting, and then of course
hopefully a little bit more scientifically believable, because boy, there's some problems with that.
Yeah, there's some issues. Yeah, I said it reminded me. It's not a lot like it. It just reminded me. Or like you remember the old TV show? They ended up remaking it, V.
Oh yeah.
Yeah,
I remember V. When it first came out, it was pretty darn impressive, even though, modern terms, it was pretty melodramatic. But yes,
yeah, just a
that
little.
one has its own. Yeah, I can see where there would be some feeling on that. Fortunately, we're not dealing with people eating reptiles.
Yes,
I
and
actually like the aliens. The basic design for the aliens was done by Eric, because they said, "Look, me and my wife Kathleen made the ones for Boundary. What do you want to do? Give me something weird. Give me something cool, and I'll build on it." And he sent me this little sketch with some little annotations, and that's where the Fens came from.
yeah, yeah, and I like them too because one, I don't want to give them away, but
Yep.
it was you made them very alien, but at the same time not so alien. Like we can't even look at them. They're
Yeah. I made them a bit smaller and gave them some appealing features so that and from their point of view, I mentioned that we're the sort of big lumbering glue, sort of like elephant thing. It's like, yeah, you could be terrifyingly big, but at the same time, there's something kind of cute about you. So that there was a rapport between the two species that could be built.
Yeah.
Alan Dean Foster did this emphatically in his Commonwealth series, where the Thranks, who are basically gigantic insects, they look sort of like crosses between locusts and praying mantids. Yeah, they look kind of creepy to us, but they smell like heaven. Yeah, so that people, well, like anything that smells that good can't be terrible, and
Exactly.
they look at us and we kind of stink, but they love the smoothness of the way that we move with no exoskeleton and everything. It's like watching waving plants or whatever. So there was a connection there. So I was inspired partly by that, saying, how do I make it so that there's a connection between both species?
Yeah. And the way that they have for them to get to us, they have a much more advanced technology than us, but it's not. It still has its limits, and it's
and as a matter of fact, it fails.
Yes,
Not
exactly.
not entirely the fault of their technology, but yes, that's one of the things that helps encourage humanity is that, all right, they're not godlike.
Yes.
Whatever they are, they can't just fix everything. They can have accidents, and if they can have accidents, then they're not as far above us. They're not a Star Trek or worse advance. Where it's like, oh no, we lost our warp drive. Now we can only fly at almost the speed of light.
Yeah.
Go away, you people are just annoying.
Well, you did a great job of introducing stakes to the it's like it's
sirloins and wait, no, different kind of steaks.
But it's like if everything comes easy, it's a boring story,
Right.
And so
everyone has to have a goal that they work toward,
right?
And there has to be something that impedes them from getting there, because then you don't have any more story once they got there. Well, I'm done. Hey, everything's fine.
And it's on both sides.
Yes, both sides. And in fact, it turned out to be there were 3 sides going there for quite a while. And the third side you don't see until fair distance in, and it doesn't get cleared up until you're getting close toward the end. And that one was one where I was really tap dancing. I had to think of, I don't want it to just be a religious group that is against aliens. I did want that to be a part of it because there are going to be those. But it's also an old trope. So I wanted it to be something else. And I think I came up with something that is enough different that when you finally figure out how the group, as they called themselves, were put together and what the real goal behind them is, it's like, that was a little different, isn't it?
Yeah. No, it was good. I like it. It snuck up on me, and I liked it. So before we go too far, where did the idea for the book come from, and the name?
Well, me and Eric were trying to bat around. We were finishing Castaway. We're heading into the last book of Castaway Planet trilogy, and we were going to contract for that third book, but we wanted something else, on the burner. And we threw around a bunch of ideas. Some of them were science fiction, some of them were fantasy. But finally, we decided that one of the classics of old SF was the alien ship approaching Earth, the first contact in a different way, because Boundary, of course, is itself a first contact book as well. But in this case, it's one that has a certain amount of tension just from the contact, just from the approach. And we've got things like Rendezvous with Rama, which is one of the classics of the genre. And one of my favorites, which was All Judgment Fled by White. And after talking with him, I came up with the idea of it being something like that, where it's not going to be as mysterious and, I guess, sterile in a sense as Rama is, because basically it's a mystery, and it mostly stays a mystery. Rama comes in and goes out. And there's a bunch of political stuff involved there, but it's all sort of, it's all orbits around the machine, but the machine itself never reveals all of its secrets. And I thought, why don't we have it so that for once, with Schmitz's one, there is something wrong in that ship, but it's already wrong when it comes in. I said, let's have it come in and look like they're going to do a standard, the aliens have arrived scenario, and then I'm going to blow them up and make it the aliens need to be rescued scenario. Fenrir was I was batting around bunches of them, and I said, I want a menacing name that I haven't seen used for this particular thing. And after a while, I said, well, hey, I've got Norse heritage. I'm half Norwegian. I'm going to steal the name of the Wolf of the World's End, and I'll just associate the star they came from with Lupus, the wolf constellation, and that'll give somebody in the book the idea to name it Fenrir.
Somewhat ominous.
Yes. Creepy. Turns out not quite as creepy, but in a way, just as dangerous.
Yes. And needless to say, I really enjoyed the book. I'm not going to give the ending away because that would be wrong. But no spoilers. So with that being said, so this is, as of right now, this is a one-off book. And
it's up to the readers to decide if they want more.
Okay.
Sell enough of them, there is more. There are. This universe could be at least as big as the Boundaryverse in terms of how long I could write in it. Having written this much of it, I can probably continue it myself, despite the fact that I won't have Eric there. But if there are any more, there's still going to be Eric Flint and Ryk Spoor, because he is part of that idea. He made it, and he will stay on the cover if that ever happens.
Yeah, because I did like the way you ended it, because you wrote it to where it could be a standalone, but there's a little sprinkle of something. Yeah, a little sprinkle of something that says, "Oh, but maybe we could go further."
Yep. Well, there's this one really unresolved question, and at some point we need the answer to that question. Do our heroes need it now? Yes and no. It does need to be answered sometime not too long, because we know there's certain implications of not getting that answer.
So you heard it here, folks. Go buy the book so we can get a part 2 and 3 and 4 and however many we can get out of you. So before I let you go, though, what else do you have going on, whether it's in writing or some other area that you'd like to talk about?
All right. Well, the re-release of the Arenaverse, the 4 books starting with Grand Central Arena, then Spheres of Influence, Challenges of the Deeps, and most recently Shadows of Hyperion, is almost all re-released now by History of Books. those have generally been some of my best sellers. And if you like a big scale space opera adventure, that's one of the ones I've written, along with my trilogy Demons of the Past, which is set in the deep past of my main writing universe. History is reissuing most of my books currently, and so within the next several months to a year, those will come out, and then new ones, because I've already released the first book in the Spirit Warriors epic fantasy crossover trilogy, and the second two will be coming out next year.
Awesome.
The first one is called Choosing the Players, second is Move and Counter Move, and the last one is Master of the Game. And finally, I will soon be re-releasing, I'm going to be getting the rights back, Tony informed me of this, for Princess Holy Aura, my anime-inspired magical girl novel, and that will be reissued along with the new sequel to it, The Apocalypse Maidens, hopefully this year. There's a lot to go through with it, but the book is done, cover is done. Now the publishing work has to be done on it. But
Awesome.
I'm hoping it will come out this year, maybe before Christmas.
Well, if it's anything of the caliber of what I just read, I look forward to it. And I'm gonna have to. You've just made my to be read pile much larger, because I gotta go back. Yeah, I got to go back and read your older stuff now. Again, let's remind people where, if they want to harass you, where they can find you.
The most people will most easily find me on Facebook as Ryk Spoor. There's only one of me in the United States, so if you see Ryk Spoor, it's either me or someone trying to pretend to be me. I have the website www.grandcentralarena.com, all one word, Grand Central Arena, and the place where I post pieces of my writing, like right now I'm posting chapters of Fenrir 3 times a week, and I also post any political rants or update of what I'm doing or whatever on dreamwidth.com. I am known as CWASP, SEAWASP on there. I've been known as CWASP online since 1977. That was when I first started using that in email on my school computer.
Wait, what's the name come from?
That is the common name of Chironex fleckeri, the stinging jellyfish, sea wasp, the most venomous creature in the ocean, at least at the time that I came up with the idea. I was trying to find a name that nobody had used, but that was kind of cool. And I had a huge book of poisonous and venomous marine animals from my dad's research library. I said, ooh, these guys are pretty and they're cool. So that's where the name came from.
Very cool. Is there anywhere people can find you in the wild, any appearances or anything like that?
Well, there'll be the most likely places you can find me in the wild. I mean, you can just send me a message, say, I'd like to see you. I can probably arrange it. But I'm almost certainly going to be at Albicon, the local Albany convention. My financial and family circumstances generally don't let me travel very far unless somebody else really wants to foot the bill. And I know how much that bill is to foot. So not likely anywhere outside of the general capital district of New York, out to maybe, Boston area, New York City area, etc. I can get somewhere in that radius.
Okay. All right, we'll put your home phone number in the description so people can get a hold of you.
No, my cell, my home phone, because then you'll be getting other people, not me.
Gotcha.
And remember, it's about me.
Well, it has been a pleasure talking to you. It was nice to meet you.
Likewise.
And congratulations on this book. You did a wonderful job.
Thank you.
I strongly encourage.
It's good to be seeing at least one more coming out of Bain from me. I have worked with them for years, and I have had professionally, I've had absolutely no complaints about them whatsoever. Yeah. It's always been a pleasure to work with Bain.
Well, I hope you get a lot more. I hope this becomes a series, because I would really like to hear the rest of the story.
As my dad said, crossing everything I got two of.
Yep. Well, watch out for some of those.
Ow! Yeah.
But truly, I enjoyed reading this book, and I'm not a huge hard science fiction guy, and this kept me interested. It and just the way you wrote it, the contemporary nature of it, and plus all the tie-ins of things that could realistically happen.
Well, thank you, and I hope that there's several thousand more people out there like you.
Yeah.
Because then we will get those sequels.
All right. Well, from your lips to God's ears, and we'll hopefully it'll happen. But to everyone out in the world, go buy the book. It'll be available June 3rd as of right now, and we'll see you next time.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
And now, as promised, one jump ahead. John Moore is a nanotech-enhanced soldier of fortune. Lobo is an AI, a living weapons and intelligence platform of enormous destructive potential. Two very dangerous wolves in a galaxy of deadly corporate and paramilitary predators. But Moore has grown weary of the killing, and just once he'd like to finish a job without leaving a trail of blood behind him. Not going to happen. Not on a pristine planet called Macon, where two gigantic corporations vie for control of the local jump gate and access to the riches of an undeveloped world. Dealing with a kidnapping and extortion scheme is only the beginning for Moore and Lobo as they work to stay one jump ahead.
I took out my wallet, thumbed it active, and checked the alerts I'd set. His bank draft had cleared locally and was now encrypted in my wallet. I was $1 million richer, and the jump slot he had promised was indeed mine. "Thank you," I said. "And the rest of it?" He sat and shook his head. "That part cost me more than your fee and jump clearance, but it's done. Kelco won't send any more staff on site or even sign the contract for 30 days. Our corporate counsel has already informed the Frontier Coalition Regional Headquarters on Lankan and Mayor Barnes of all of this, as you asked." He stood again and looked at me. "You do understand, don't you, that for all the trouble this month of delay cost me, it will end up meaning nothing? Kelco will still have exclusive rights to Macon and the new aperture. We'll still develop this planet. We'll just start a month from now instead of tomorrow or the next day. And when the aperture is ready, we'll explore it first. That's not my problem. Jasmine is safe and you kept your word. We're done." "Yes," he said, "we are." As he walked me to the door, he said, "Mayor Barnes told me about your arrangement with him. I understand you'll need some parts." I should have known better than to think a bureaucrat could keep his mouth shut. Barnes was already cozying up to his new corporate partner. I'm fine without them. He smiled. "That's your choice, of course. Should you change your mind, I can recommend a dealer on Lankan named Oosterlad. He should be able to help you. He's proven useful to our company from time to time in the past." My wallet signaled the incoming data, and I thumbed the clean and accept option. A source for Lobo's broken parts might prove valuable. "All I want right now," I said as I closed the door behind me, "is to wrap this up and find a new place to continue my vacation." As we stood in his office less than an hour later, Barnes proved as curious as Slake and no more gracious. "I received an update from Kelco's counsel, and it's amazing," he said. "We have the month to prepare, and Slake is leaving." "That was the deal," I said. "Yes, but how did you do it?" "That wasn't the deal." "I know you're not sticking around, but I'll have to handle the gardeners after you're gone. Knowing how you handled them could make my job easier." "Your job is not my problem," I said. "You have what you wanted. I did my part. Now do yours." He sat in his desk chair, leaned back, and said, "I hope you appreciate that what you asked wasn't a simple thing to accomplish. Do you have any clue how hard it was to get Coalition permission to transfer a weapon that sophisticated? Not to mention how hard its absence will be to explain to the people here." None of that is my problem either. Nor was what I had to do your problem. Are you going to hold up your end? I asked as I leaned over his desk until our faces were level. Or will this have to turn ugly? Barnes cleared his throat, tapped a few times on the display built into his desk. A nice antique touch, I thought, to go with the rest of his office decor, and said, "Complete the transfer." Turning to me, he said, "It's done." I took out my wallet and checked. The transfer was complete. The title was in my wallet, along with all the relevant permits, codes, instructions, and keys. After my wallet swept the information for intruders and contamination, I had it back up all of the data, along with Slake's draft to the local bank. "Then we're done," I said.
This has been the Bain Free Radio Hour. Thanks for joining us at the heart of science fiction. Join us next week for part 15 of One Jump Ahead by Mark Van Name. And Griffin Barber interviews Melissa Altoff on her epic novel, Rise from Ruin. Score by Ruth Judkowitz.